Let's go back to 1935. Imagine a crime so meticulously planned, so horrifyingly precise, it was designed to be unsolvable. This isn't just a story about a murder. It's about a brilliant surgeon's terrifying dark side, and how his crime actually gave birth to forensic techniques that completely changed the game for investigators. This is the story of the Jigsaw murders.
70. That's the number that confronted investigators when they arrived in the remote Scottish countryside. Just 70. But 70 what? It wasn't witnesses, and it wasn't clues in the traditional sense. No, it was something far, far worse.
So, on September 29, 1935, a few hikers out near the town of Moffat, they stumble upon this absolutely horrific scene. We're talking more than 70 pieces of human remains just dumped in streams and hidden in ravines. You can imagine the police were facing an almost impossible challenge. The whole crime scene was like a puzzle, right? But it was a puzzle where the pieces were intentionally designed to never, ever fit back together. So the big questions were, who were these victims? And maybe even more pressing, who on earth could commit such a methodical and brutal crime?
You see, this wasn't just a murder. It was a calculated act of complete erasure. The killer had used what was clearly expert surgical knowledge to systematically remove every single identifying feature. We're talking eyes, teeth, even skin. They weren't just trying to hide a couple of bodies. They were trying to create ghosts, to make these victims so anonymous that justice would be impossible.
Well, the investigation pretty soon led police away from those desolate hills in Scotland, about 50 miles south to a very respectable home in Lancaster, England. And there, they found the man at the center of this whole thing, a seemingly dedicated and well-loved physician named Dr. Buck Ruxton.
In public, Dr. Ruxton was, a pillar of the community. People knew him for his generosity, his skill as a doctor. But behind closed doors, a totally different man emerged. This was a man consumed by a paranoid jealousy, especially when it came to his common-law wife, Isabella Kerr. He was controlling, deeply suspicious, and as it turns out, capable of unbelievable violence.
And just tragically, those dismembered remains belonged to the two women who lived right there under his roof, his partner, Isabella Kerr, and the family's young housemaid, Mary Jane Rogerson. And here's the kicker. Both of them had been reported missing by Dr. Ruxton himself just days before the discovery.
So investigators started to piece together this chilling timeline. It all began with a violent argument on September 14th, probably fueled by Ruxton's completely baseless suspicions about Isabella. When the housemaid Mary Jane tragically walked in on it, he silenced her, too. And then, in his own bathroom, he spent 8 hours using his surgical precision not to heal but to destroy, meticulously dissecting the bodies before driving north to get rid of the evidence.
But Ruxton's attempt at the so-called perfect crime was about to be completely undone. You see, his greatest asset, his medical knowledge, was about to go head-to-head with a new, powerful force in law enforcement: forensic science.
The case fell to this absolutely brilliant team from the University of Edinburgh. It was led by a forensic pathologist, Professor John Glaister Jr., and an anatomist, James Cooper Brash. Their job was to somehow give these victims back their names, and in doing so, point the finger directly at their killer.
And their secret weapon was a technique so advanced for its time, it sounds like something straight out of a modern crime drama: photographic superimposition. The idea is actually pretty simple, but brilliant. You take a photo of an unidentified skull and you overlay it on a portrait of a person who's missing. If the bone structure matches the face, you've got your victim.
So first, Glaister and Brash had to painstakingly reassemble the fractured skulls. I mean, can you imagine that job? Then, they photographed them from the exact same angle as family portraits of Isabella and Mary Jane. When they superimposed the images of one of the skulls in the portrait of Isabella Kerr, the result was just undeniable. It was a perfect match.
This was the breakthrough. That scientific match was the irrefutable link connecting those anonymous remains in Scotland to the missing women from Dr. Ruxton's home in Lancaster. And you have to understand, this was the first time in a British court that a victim's identity was proven this way. It completely changed the game.
And once the identities were confirmed, the rest of the evidence just started falling into place like dominoes. Despite Ruxton's frantic cleaning, bloodstains were found all over his house. His fingerprints were on the very newspaper used to wrap the body parts, and a crucial witness even placed his car near the dump site on the night of the disposal. Yeah, the net was closing in fast. So all of this groundbreaking scientific evidence was then pulled together for a pretty dramatic trial that absolutely captivated the entire nation. Things moved really quickly from there. I mean, within a month of the bodies being found, Ruxton was arrested. His trial kicked off in March of 1936, and it took the jury just over an hour to come back with a verdict.
In court, Ruxton pleaded not guilty, and he spun this wild tale about some unknown intruder who must have done it. But his story just couldn't stand up to the mountain of forensic facts. I mean, the superimposition photos, the blood evidence, the fingerprints, it was just overwhelming. Science had built a completely airtight case.
So Dr. Ruxton was convicted and executed. But the story doesn't really end there. The true legacy of this horrifying case is how it totally transformed the fight against crime forever.
The Ruxton case really stands as a landmark. It was the definitive proof that science could outsmart even the most calculating killer. Think about it. A surgeon used his expert knowledge to commit what he thought was the perfect crime, but a team of scientists used theirs to unravel it completely.
And the impact was just enormous. Techniques like superimposition and body reconstruction, which were revolutionary then, became standard police practice. The case seriously bolstered public faith in scientific investigation, and it's still taught in criminology classes today as this foundational moment in forensic history.
And you know, that really leaves us with a final thought. The work that was done by Glaister and Brash back in 1935, it laid the groundwork for decades of forensic innovation that followed. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many killers have been caught, and how many victims have been given back their names, all thanks to the science that was born from this one truly gruesome case.